Let's jump into problem 9.3a. We're looking at more bonds. In problem 9.1, we looked at bonds that we were holding to maturity and we accounted for their revenues using the effective interest method. In problem 9.2, we looked at bonds where we're holding them just for trading, and we looked at how to adjust those, and we adjusted them to fair value. In 9.3, we're kind of straddling the line. We bought some bonds, we are planning to hang on to them, but we might trade them. We're not super sure what we're going to do. And in this case, we have to do both. We have to account for them as if it was like 9.1, where we do effective interest, but we also will adjust them to fair value periodically. And that makes 9.3 the most difficult of the three. But let's get into it. On January 1st, 2031, Falkland Corp purchases bonds issued by Global Inc. The company generally holds bonds to collect interest, but will sell them if cash is needed for other projects. As such, it classifies these bonds as available for sale, aka FVOCI, fair value through OCI. The face value of the bonds, $200,000. Coupon rate is 5%, paid annually. 200,000 times 5% is $10,000 annual payments, and they're going to last 5 years. Market rate is 6%. Well, if our coupon rate's lower than the market, these are going to issue at a discount. The bonds were purchased for $191,575. On December 31st, 2031, the bonds had a fair value of $195. So the bonds have been going up in value. That's good news for us. On May 31st, the company sells the bonds for $198. The bonds continue to climb in value. Well, again, great news for us. Plus the accrued interest. So we sold them for $198 plus any interest that had built up to that time. The company has a December 31st fiscal year end. Okay. First things first, we're going to prepare an investment amortization schedule, the effective interest rate method. So let's go ahead and do that. The bond carrying amount, the opening bond carrying amount is what you paid for the bond, $191,575. The interest payments are the same every period. They're $10,000, just the coupon times the face value. And again, if it's semi-annual, it'd be half that, but this is not a semi-annual bond. It's an annual bond. The interest revenue, you take the carrying amount and multiply by the market rate. So 191,575 times 0.06 is 1149. I'm going to round up 11495. Okay, now there's a difference here. Our revenue was significantly higher than our payment, right? Our revenue was $11,000. Our payment was $10,000. We're $1,400 higher, $1,495. What is happening here? Why is the revenue higher than the payment? And the answer is because at the end of this bond, if I held on to it, I'm going to receive like an extra $8,000, $8,500, right? I loan them, I give up $191 to get $200,000 in 5 years. Well, that extra amount, that extra $8,000 is interest, and we recognize it sort of over time. So here I got $10,000 payment, but I'm recognizing $11,000 in interest because of that extra amount. The bond carrying amount, every time I recognize a little bit of extra interest, my bond carrying amount gets closer and closer to the $200,000. So it's going to go up by $1,495. So 191,575 plus $1,495 is $193,070. Let's go on to our next one. Our payment on December 31st, it would be, if we own the thing on December 31st, 2032, it would be $10,000. Our interest revenue on that date would be $193,070 times by 6%, 11584. And the premium or discount amortization here is 1584, just the difference between the two. And so our bond, again, is going to grow from 193 to like 194,600. So 193,070 plus 1584, 194,654, 194,654. And we could keep going, but of course we know we sold the bond on May 31st, 2032. So, we'll be done with the bond by then. Okay, the question goes on to say, do some journal entries. So first journal entry, the journal entry for the purchase of the bonds. That's an easy enough journal entry. Debit investment in bonds on January 1st, 2031. Debit investment in bonds. 191,575, what we paid for the bond. Credit cash, 191,575. Okay, that's that. On to C, it says record the journal entry for the December 31st, 2031 interest payment. This is where we use our effective interest table, December 31st, 2031. You can see the line there. So Dec 31, 2031, we get cash, debit cash, $10,000. I'm going to leave a line and I'm going to credit interest revenue, 11,495. And now you can see we're off by $14.95 debit. Well, that's debiting the bond, right? Our bond carrying amount is going up by $14.95. So debit investment in bonds. $14.95. I'm going to make a T account here for my investment in bonds. Just to keep track of it. So I'm starting at 191, and I highly recommend you do this as well. Question didn't ask for it, but it's going to come in handy. Started at a debit of 191,575. I've just debited it by $14.95. So where's my bond sitting? 191,575 plus $14.95. It's sitting at 193,070, which is exactly where we figured it would be. But don't worry, this won't be totally redundant if you're thinking I'm just recreating the table in a T account. I'm not, but that's just sort of telling you what's happening in our accounting records behind the scenes. And in fact, having that T account comes handy when we get to D. D says, record the journal entry for the fair value adjustment on December 31st, 2031. Now the question says, we looked up the bond price and the bond's actually worth $195. Our accounting records, after having done the adjustment, say, no, it's worth $193. Well, we want it to be worth $195. So how do I get it to go up to $195? I'm going to have to debit my investment by that missing number, right? By some missing amount. Well, what is it? 195 minus 193,070. 1930 is the missing amount. So let's do that journal entry. So this also happens on December 31st, 2031. We debit investment in bonds. We just make our bond value go up by 1930. And we credit unrealized holding gain loss. And we do want to be very particular. We want to say this is an OCI account. This is not a normal revenue or expense account. This is an other comprehensive income account. Now, there are textbooks that will say don't debit the investment, debit an account called fair value adjustment. So I'll just put that in brackets, fair value adjustment. And what fair value adjustment is it's like a contra asset account. When it's a credit, when it's a debit, they call it, what do they call it? An adjunct account, and it just adds to the value of our investment. So we have our investment, debit of 191 plus 14.95. Then behind the scenes, you'll say, oh, plus this fair value adjustment of 1930, and you get a total of 195 in your investment account. The reason you'd keep it separate is maybe for some taxation reasons, and you might want to track the fair value adjustment separately. I'm going to say when we're learning this stuff, just put it in the investment account. It'll make your life easier. If your professor says do it the other way, of course, that is totally fine and it's totally right. We're both doing the same thing here. Okay, let's continue. E, record the journal entry to accrue interest revenue up to May 31st, 2032. All right, so we're on this line now, but we're only going up to May 31st, which is January, February, March, April, May, 5 months. So we have to say, okay, I'm going to take this interest payment, but I'm going to take 5/12ths of the interest payment. So it's $10,000 payment times 5 divided by 12, $41.67. Now, we're not going to debit cash because we don't get any money. This is interest receivable, right? The company doesn't care that I'm trading the bond with somebody else. They just go every 12 months I cut a check, and they're gonna write that check, but it'll be a new owner, not December 31st, May 31st, 2032. So I got to say, okay, this is interest receivable of 4167. I'm going to credit interest revenue for, again, 5/12ths of that amount, because we're going from December to May. We are on that line, but we don't take 12 months, we take 5 months. So my interest revenue, I'll leave room for a different debit, but my interest rev is 11584 times 5 divided by 12. It's 4827. 4827. Last but not least, 4827 minus 4167, 660. That's the amount that our investment increases as a result of this discount amortization, right? The discount being reduced means our investment value is going up. And we could do this 1584 times 5/12ths, and we get 660. So just that number times 5/12ths. And there we debit the investment. It's the same entry as here, essentially. Debit investment in bonds. For 660. Let's see where our investment in bonds is sitting now. We debited it 1930 on December 31st, and now on May 31st we debited another 660. So our investment in bonds is sitting at 195,660 after having done all of this. Now it says record the fair value adjustment. The fair value of the bonds is 198,500 because that's how much money we received for it. So we assume we received fair value. So it's on the books for 195, but the fair value is 198,500. I got to go from 195 to 198. How do I do it? Well, just 198,500 minus 195,660, 2840. So I'm missing a debit of 2840. So let's do that entry. So this is F, fair value adjustment on May 31st, 2032. I debit investment in bonds for 2840. And I credit unrealized holding gain loss through OCI. Now, it's only been gains. They've all been credits, but had there been a debit, it would be a loss for 2840. Okay, on to G. G is sort of a two-step one. They're both pretty straightforward steps. It says prepare the journal entry for the sale of the bonds, include the recycling of OCI. Recycling of OCI I can do as a sort of a separate step here. But let's do the sale of the bonds. May 31st, 2032. I'm going to debit cash. Now, how much cash did I receive when I sold the bond? I received $198,500 plus accrued interest. And the accrued interest was the interest receivable, $41.67. So I received $198,500, the amount of the bond, plus $41.67. So I got cash of $202,667. I get rid of the interest receivable. It's no longer receivable. The money's been received, which was $41.67. And I get rid of my bond investment. I no longer own it. I sold it to somebody else. $198,500. So that journal entry balances, debits equals credits. Now the other piece of the journal entry is this recycling of OCI. So when we put something to OCI, it's like a revenue or an expense. It's like something that belongs on the income statement, but standard setters have said, because we don't want the company to on their income statement be showing these revenues and expenses that are kind of outside of their company or outside of their control, will allow certain classes of transactions to go into this OCI. We keep it off the income statement until we sell the thing. And then it says we recycle our OCI. We put anything we put into OCI, we put it into net income. We put it into the revenue or expense where it belongs. All that means is anything I put into OCI in the question, I need to take it out of OCI and I need to put it into a normal revenue or expense account. So the total amount I put into OCI, 1930 credit plus 2840 credit, 4770, I reverse it out of OCI. So this is this recycling piece, May 31st, 2032. I take it out of OCI, so I debit unrealized holding gain loss OCI 4770, and I credit gain on sale. And this is a realized gain on sale of investment, 4770. That's it. So you just wipe the OCI slate clean. Now it's all going to work its way through our AOCI account. There's funny things that happen, but they will work out behind the scenes. We wipe our OCI clean. We put it to a realized gain or loss on the sale of the investment. And there we have it. 9.3a is a doozy of a question, but we got through it together. As always, thanks for watching these videos, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now. The next video in our series is right up here, and if you want a supercut of all of the videos in this series, that's the one down below.